All right. I think we're ready to segue.
Cool. Let's bring on Coey here. So, hello, Coey.
Good morning.
Hello and good morning.
Awesome to have you here with us.
It's an honor. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, you're with
Heritage Title Company, proudly.
and you've been with them for
9 years now,
9 years.
but I'm coming up on my 23rd year in title.
Wow. So, what all have you done in title? Have you been a rep the whole time, or have you done some other things in the
No, I
industry?
was actually fortunate to fall into the business in August of 1998 as a closing assistant. I did not know what a FISBO or HELOC was, and I learned from the bottom up and worked my way up the totem pole, became a refinance closer, was a builder closer until the builders died off in 2008, and then reinvented myself. And so I had total closing years at 14. So I got into residential and short sale at the end of my closing career, and then I was asked to move into the dark side, aka sales. It's not dark, I'm just kidding.
I know.
But so well-rounded. I mean, such
Yes.
a depth of knowledge coming through all those different spectrums in the title industry.
There isn't a day that goes by that I don't learn in this business, and I feel like anyone that's in the business should be learning on the daily.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now you had a closing at 9 o'clock this morning. You said, what?
Yes.
What's that mean? I mean,
What
if
does
you're a
that look
rep,
like?
what are you doing as a rep for a closing? I mean, so you don't just go get the business. You actually help support during the transaction.
I do. I'm fortunate that with my background and knowledge of the closing side, I still do closing presents, and I actually love being at the table with all of you and your clients. It's a privilege, and frankly, I've always been under the impression that it is truly the icing on the cake for the transaction as a whole. So it's an honor to be at the closing table.
Ah, that's cool.
Awesome.
I mean, that's unique. We don't see that all the time with a lot of other companies out there. So yeah, we're glad to have you here today. We might have a few people on our Facebook Live that don't know how I bring people in, and that we keep a pretty tight office and really only want the best of the best coming and speaking in front of our agents and sharing, and you're one of those best of the best. So we're honored to have you here today. And I think you have some topics that you're going to talk about today. You wanted to talk about maybe some hot topics, some issues, some
Common pitfalls.
common pitfalls.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the importance of title insurance. And so I'm kind of on a mission to educate and share with our business partners some tips that you have control over and some things that we see on our side. One of the things that I wanted to talk to all of you that are representing buyers, you may not be aware, but as a buyer's agent, you can ask for a free endorsement, which is the inflation endorsement. And what this endorsement does, and it's no cost to your buyer, is it actually increases the coverage of your title policy by 10% each year up to 5 years. So as you can imagine, our home values are going up, but when you buy your title insurance policy, if you don't ask for that inflation endorsement, your coverage isn't going up. So that's just a pro tip that you can all utilize, and just simply ask in the additional provisions for the inflation endorsement. Title companies should be providing to your clients free of charge.
Very cool. I was not aware of that.
No.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is we have a lot of people buying new construction. So oftentimes, and not so much with the builders, but those that are dealing with private builders, they're buying the vacant land, and then they go off and over the next couple of years, they build their home. What you may not be aware of is that when they purchase that vacant land, their policy is quite small. And now they've added this beautiful home that really needs to be safeguarded. Let's say they bought the land for 50,000, they just put on a home for 500,000. Really, they want a policy that covers 550,000, not 50,000. So after they've completed the building of their home, they should be asking for an endorsement called increased liability. And that is going to bring your title policy coverage from 50,000 up to 550,000. So that's real key to, ask for that increased liability endorsement when somebody is purchasing vacant land with the intention of building down the line.
Very nice.
Interesting. So why do you have to ask for this? Why is this not just something that's there?
Because as a title company, we don't know what their use is going to be of that vacant land. Maybe they're going to put cows out to pasture. We don't know that they're going to be building a home. So it's important as a professional realtor to be proactive and advocate for your clients and let them know that upon completion of building their home, they want to be asking for that increased liability endorsement.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank
Gotcha.
you.
Okay.
All right. So some of the other things that we see and that we encourage you to do so, while you cannot give legal advice, we do encourage you to be reviewing your title commitment. If you're representing the buyer, specifically Schedule B, which is the exceptions, these are the items that are not covered under your title policy. And the reason that we encourage you to review those is because there's lots of different issues that can arise from those items in the exceptions. Specifically, there may be certain covenants. If your buyer is buying with the intention of renting it out, and within those covenants, it has strict, rules that prohibit them from renting out, that's a loss of income. And they're going to be pretty upset that somebody didn't bring that to their attention. The other thing is, if they're looking to build on their property, they have to be aware of easements that they can't build over. That can run into problems when you're putting up fences, decks, etc. And one of the big things that we see that you may be familiar with is the affordable housing restrictions. This is a really big deal. Green Valley Ranch is one of the known areas that has the affordable housing conditions. And as you know, when you purchase one of those homes, it caps what you can sell it for. So while everybody's home values are going up and that homeowner thinks they're going to make a great increase on that home, really with those restrictions, they're not going to be able to sell at typical market value. So it's really important to be looking at those exceptions for red flags like that.
Definitely. Yeah, very good point.
Do we want to introduce Jason there?
Yes, I would love to. So many of you are familiar and know, but let me introduce one of our amazing escrow officers, Jason Tabling. Here he is.
Good morning.
I have to say, we were very fortunate to recruit Jason to our
That's
team.
a nice way to say steal him.
He is a closing phenom, and I feel like we make a really good team.
Yes, we do. And I love equity and love everyone there. So I'm definitely glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks
Cool.
for all you do and all the support you offer.
Yeah,
Definitely.
congratulations on and being with a great company. Not that you weren't already at a great place, but you're still with a great company. I mean,
Exactly. Thank you.
A few people we let in the doors, and Heritage, First American Land Title are really our three go-tos. They all do a wonderful job, and so yeah,
Absolutely. Excellent companies.
definitely.
Okay. I'll leave you to it.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
See you.
So I had a couple other items I was going to share with you guys if we have time.
Oh,
Definitely.
of course. Definitely.
Yeah, and then we'll see if we have questions when you're down here, and yeah.
You bet. Okay, so one of the things when you're representing the seller, you want to please be checking the legal description. This can become a problem when sellers own multiple properties, or let's say they have multiple parcels of land and they're really only meaning to sell one parcel, and that legal may contain more than one. So it's really important that you're verifying the legal description so that you're not giving away the farm, literally.
Literally.
Yeah, yeah.
So keep that in mind. As you mentioned, we have some really amazing, financially stable and secure and expert title companies here in Denver. And, you know, it's important to find a good fit. I would caution you about closing with smaller title agencies. As you may know, it only takes $10,000 to open up a title company. $10,000 isn't much money in this day and age, and literally one closing loss can put a title company out of business. And we've seen it here, title companies closing their doors overnight, which is real frightening when it's your fiduciary responsibility to safeguard your clients and their money. You know,
Right.
typically this is the largest financial transaction in their life. We are honored to safeguard that purchase, and so it's not to be taken lightly. Security is really important this day and age. Not only wire fraud, but fraud is at an all-time high. You're mostly fortunate if you don't know about all the fraud that goes on behind the scenes. Like realtors, where you're dealing with inspection issues and all kinds of things, you know, not necessarily where your clients realize everything that you're doing behind the scenes. We also are combating fraud in various ways. We had a closer that was nationally recognized a handful of years ago because the unrightful owner was trying to sell a property from underneath the rightful owner. And it happens a lot. Unfortunately, there are bad people in the world, and you know, you need to be very protective and make sure that your title company is financially prepared for. There's two types of losses. There's escrow losses, where human beings sometimes miss things, make mistakes. And then there's title losses, where we have claims against the properties. And it is our job, when you have a title policy, to go to court on your behalf as a buyer and protect your homeowner's rights. So you've got to have deep pockets for those legal issues that do arise.
For sure.
No, good points. And yeah, I mean, definitely during 2008, 9, and 10, we saw a ton of title companies go out of business. But even in good times,
Yes.
some of these smaller ones, you know, poor management makes them go out of business. And we won't talk stories, but yeah,
Yes.
there are some small, big title companies that
Right.
have done poorly. And
Absolutely.
you don't want your clients to be over there. Yeah.
No, you don't want to be putting them at risk, and you don't want to be at risk yourself, because inevitably if something goes wrong, they're coming back to you. They don't remember us. They remember their realtor. So make sure that you're advocating for them. Along those lines, I also want to caution you, when you check that box on the contract for owner's extended coverage, that's great. But you need to follow up and make sure that the title commitment shows that the buyer is receiving owner's extended coverage. Just because you check the box does not mean that that title company is providing owner's extended coverage. It takes, it's a lot of risk for a title insurance company to provide owner's extended coverage, because within that, they were taking care of mechanics liens issues. So let's say a roof is getting repaired, the subcontractor doesn't get paid by the original contractor, they can put mechanics liens against the property, and that becomes a problem for your buyers. So not only do you check the box in the contract, make sure that you're actually receiving that on the title commitment. These smaller title companies, they aren't willing to take that risk on, so you need to be double checking.
And is it pretty apparent on the title commitment? Where are we supposed to look to find if that owner's extended coverage is being provided?
Yeah, actually 2 places. It should show both on the title fees, and it should also show on your Schedule B, your requirements.
Perfect.
Okay, so make sure you're looking for that language.
Perfect.
You bet.
And then I do think that we have a question, and we'll go back a little bit. You had mentioned double check the legal descriptions for your sellers to make sure that they're not selling multiple properties. And one of our agents did ask, where's the best place to go to make sure you have the most accurate legal description?
Yes, so the tax certificate is a great place to verify that legal description. You can also go on the county's website as well.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Any other questions come through?
Yeah.
Great.
What can we do when representing the buyer and the title company is one of those small companies?
Well, as you know, Colorado, typically the seller is paying for the owner's title policy. With that said, ultimately you want to be protecting your buyers. Now, I'm not going to say, lose the transaction over this, but it never hurts. I do have realtor partners who we deal with on the listing side. And when they come across small title companies, when they're representing buyers, they still check the box that the seller will provide and pay for the owner's owner's title policy. But under additional provisions, they show that buyer chooses to close with XYZ company. And oftentimes, if you have the conversation with the listing agent, unless they're digging in their heels, more often than not, they're willing to switch to a title company as long as it's a bigger, reputable, financially secure company.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's the real estate commission has pushed very hard the last few years, 3 years. It is not our choice. It is the buyer's choice and the seller's choice. But it's our responsibility to advise and let people know what could go wrong. And yes, things can go wrong with a small title company or any title company, you want a very reputable company, and especially the buyer, they're the ones who are depositing their earnest money. Not to mention now they're the ones who are going to be getting the title policy. It's funny that we have had the seller from so many years kind of pick, kind of choose, or the listing agent, when really it's the buyer who's at risk the most. So yeah, for those who said, yeah, put it in there. Make this part of the deal. You're protecting your buyer, for sure.
And with that said, I'd like to share another pro tip for your buyers. Here's a great touch point for you. When you get that final title policy emailed to you, and you should be getting CC'd on that as the buyer's agent, print off a copy, keep a copy in your file, send a hard copy to your buyers. Here's what we're running into more so these days. In fact, one of your agents was on a transaction where the prior owner who had sold to their current owner several years ago, their loan, the previous owner's loan was still showing up against the title.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Yes. And so now you've got your current owner that is trying to sell their property. And in this particular example, they had a $150,000 loan belonging to the prior owner.
Wow.
That was still on the title. It had never been released. So I say keep your title policy handy, because if you cannot physically present that final policy to the underwriter when you file a claim, they're not going to do anything about it. It's sad, but we had file numbers. I was fortunate after a lot of research. Jason and I actually worked on this together. We tag teamed. I was able to get a hold of the attorney for the underwriter, and we managed to get through it and find a resolution. But this could have ended badly. It could have meant one of two things. That seller couldn't have sold their home without paying for a $150,000 loan that they never took out.
Wow, that's scary.
So keep your final policies. It's a great post-closing touch point for you to reach out to your buyers and say, I hope you're loving your home. Keep this in a safe place. This is your policy. In case you run into any issues or need to file a claim, you need to have this paperwork. It's very important.
Yeah,
that's great.
Great recommendation.
Yeah.
Great recommendation. We do have a couple other questions, if you don't mind. All right, so one of our agents says, I have a couple of questions on vacant land purchases with no structures. Would OEC be needed, and can a plat be used for that? Also, can title assist with getting a house number assigned to the land rather than TBD?
Oh, boy, you guys are getting deep. I need to go get my chief title officer. So typically you won't see owner's extended coverage on vacant land, but if they want it, we do require a survey. So keep that in mind.
And what would be the benefit to having owner's extended coverage on land?
Well, there again, you're protected for those first 4 items that are exceptions on the title policy. They're covered, and that does have to do with mechanic lien coverage, which, you know, more than likely that's not going to be an issue out there. If there were easements, you know, that's potentially, if you were going to build after a while, you want to make sure that you're covered for easements. So we don't see it a lot on vacant land.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the question about can title assist with getting a house number?
We actually don't do that. That would need to go through the county.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Let's see, what else? Generally, who would I contact to discuss title exceptions on a property? The closer, the sales rep? This question comes up all the time.
No doubt. Anyone is always welcome to call the closer. You're welcome to call me. We, you know, have resources available to you. So honestly, we all have our specialties and our expertise. And if it's real intricate, then we would connect you with our title officer so that you can have a conversation. As you know, we cannot give legal advice same as you. Right. So we can discuss what it is. We cannot tell you how it affects your clients. That's where real estate attorneys come in.
Perfect. But if we have a newer agent who's never looked at a title commitment and hasn't had an opportunity to take a class, they can at least call the closer and say, hey, what red flags should I be looking for? Or what should I tell my buyer to watch out for?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Very good. Let's see. Great questions, you guys. Would requesting a protection letter make a difference?
Are you speaking to closing protection letter?
Must be. It just says a protection letter. So I'm guessing a closing protection letter.
I would recommend closing protection letters if you're closing with a smaller title company. If you're dealing with the top 3 that you were talking about earlier, you really don't need to. It has to do with if we have a direct underwriter, or if, you know, there's a smaller title company, it's protection for the funds that the buyers are sending in. Typically it's about $25. So it doesn't hurt, but when you're dealing with a larger title company, you really don't need to worry about closing protection letter.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yeah, because we get that question all the time.
I had never even heard of it myself.
Oh, Joe Cox has talked about closing protection letters for years. And yeah, I just wasn't sure if it's valuable with the larger title companies or more pertinent with the smaller ones.
Save your money.
Okay. Stick to the big guys.
Exactly.
The good guys.
When a title company is purchased, does the title insurance protection move?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you read that again?
So, for example, Title Company of the Rockies purchased Stewart Title. So what happens with those title policies when there's a merger or when one title company purchases another title company?
Yeah, so the underwriter is actually the entity that is providing the title insurance policy. So even though the ownership of the title company has changed, more than likely the underwriter is the same, but yes, they would maintain those policies.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Good question. I think that's all we've got so far.
We're right on time too.
Yeah. You know, we did have one person a little while ago that did say, can Coey explain the inflation endorsement further and why it would be important?
Sure, absolutely. So let's say you purchased a property at $300,000. Okay, and so when you buy your policy, it's covering you for $300,000. With the inflation endorsement, that coverage, the policy coverage, is going to increase by 10% each year, up to 5 years. So over that 5-year period, your policy is worth more. The importance of that is because if somebody were to come back and make a claim against your property, and let's just say, hypothetically, we closed on a home, we allowed a person to sell the home that wasn't rightfully the owner. Doesn't happen much, but it could happen, and that's where the fraud comes in. If that were to occur and we had to go defend the buyer in court, you want to make sure that your client is getting compensated for the increase in their value over those 5 years. Let's say 5 years down the line, now they're ending up in court, or we are on their behalf. You don't want them getting paid or reimbursed for their purchase at $300,000 because their value's gone up over the last 5 years. So with that inflation endorsement, their protection is now higher 5 years later to compensate for the increase in values of homes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Definitely.
Thank you for,
Okay.
clarifying a little bit more. So
Is this something everybody has and we just don't ask for it, or is this a heritage title thing?
So everyone should have it. Heritage Title for sure has it. And it is free. So it's just a matter of asking for it. They are actually trying to get it pushed through legally so that it's just a standard endorsement.
That's
Yeah,
what
that
I'm
makes
like,
sense.
why- just put it there. Yeah.
Right. We are advocating for that. Our chief title officer sits on the board for the American Land Title Association, which is the oversight for all title companies. And we're trying to get that pushed through so that it's automatic. But in the meantime, it allows you to be a rock star.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, very cool. So the reason maybe why they only do 5 years is any claims that you're really going to see, are those really within the first handful of years? And I mean, I own the place for 20 years. I don't need to keep this thing extended because if there's an issue, it would have
Surface
most
sooner.
likely surfaced much sooner.
Yes, typically that is the case.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any other questions, Aaron?
Looks
Before we
like
let Coey go back to work?
the final question, what differentiates a big title company from a small title company?
Well, really, a lot of it comes down to financial stability. The other thing with larger title companies, we have more resources, and that has to do with staffing. So in a smaller title company, you may have 1 or 2 closers, and on a busy day, if they're both in closings, who's answering the phone? You know, I make jokes about it, but I can personally speak from experience. Over my 22-year career, I did work for a small title company for just a little over a year, and let's just leave it at the fact that they don't hold themselves to high business practices. And there is some scary things that go on behind the scenes. And I believe that when you're with a larger company, we've got standards in place to make sure that you and your clients are protected. And that's really important when you're dealing with such large amounts of money. But the resources, as far as here at Heritage Title, we're incredibly proud to act as a huge team. Some of you may have seen today we have 386 closings on the calendar, and it takes a tremendous amount of teamwork to successfully close 386 transactions in one day.
That's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, you're a large company.
So Coey can get back to work.
But truly, you know, knowledge and expertise is really important in this business. I know that a lot of people don't truly understand the intricacies of title insurance and what's going on behind the scenes here, but it's truly important to align yourself with team partners that understand the business and advocate for you. We're here to work hard for you to make you look good.
No, that's
Awesome.
awesome. And I want to piggyback on the large, I mean, sometimes we hear big companies, and like, let's help the little guy out. Well, we're talking finances and people's largest investment, most likely. And it's not that a small company is a bad company. We're looking for stability
Mm-hmm.
and people to be able to get the job done when things are really
Arise.
happening. And yeah, this isn't the time to give your friend down the street a shot. This is where you want to make sure that things are going to go smooth and without problems. And if there are problems, that you've got the backing.
Yeah.
And so,
Because everyone loves their title company when they're sitting at the closing table just signing docs. As
Yeah.
long as there's a friendly face there, people don't think twice about it. But it's when that claim arises a year later and you've got $150,000 mechanics lien or per loan from a previous owner, who's going to go to bat for your client in court. And we've personally had a transaction with a buyer in a small title company years and years ago, and it was a rough road. Really
years.
rough.
It was years.
It was years to get it remedied, and it
Yeah.
took a lot of time for my clients. So reputable title companies, so important.
So important.
So important.
And if I could just say one last item, we just want to talk about wire fraud because it's prevalent, it's crazy. Just know that when you're working with Heritage Title, we are not allowed, nor will we ever email wiring instructions. Emails are getting hijacked. Couple letters, numbers are changed, and that money that was going to be sent by your buyer is now in a different country. So we don't take that lightly. There are companies in town that will send them even unsecure.
Oof.
Do not ever, at the bare minimum, make a phone call to your closer and make sure that those wiring instructions are correct before they are given to your buyer. And do not forward them from your Gmail, Hotmail. It's unsecure, and you're setting your clients up for disaster.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, great advice. I know a lot of our agents have been wondering what secure methods are there for sending, and there's different email accounts you can subscribe to, but CTM is actually a secure system.
The phone.
Yeah, the phone
Oh.
is the best way to be. Yeah, agreed.
Know who you're talking to.
But yeah, that's why we send all of our real estate contracts to title companies through CTM, is because that is a secure system. So yeah, agreed. Never forward stuff through email, and always phone to verify.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, Coey.
This is
Thank you.
It's so good to see you.
yeah, and I'm getting lots of comments saying thank you, great info, thanks for your time, thank you, Coey. So yeah, on.
Mwah.
Thanks so much. Tell Jason thank you for popping in. I know you guys are busy. So
Absolutely.
let you run.
It's our honor and pleasure to partner with you. And if any of you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you want some more information on those two endorsements, the inflation and the increased liability, I do have a flyer that I'm happy to share.
That'd be great.
Great.
Yeah,
Yep.
send it our way.
Okay. Thank you both. I really appreciate it.
Have a
Thanks a
great
lot.
rest
Have
of
a
your
great-
Have
week.
a happy 4th.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.